Number 1. Some friends and I went to an abandoned mental asylum at night, not really expecting much. We busted in one of the boarded up windows, and when we were all inside, we all heard talking. We figured other people were there, so we followed the sound. We were walking down the hall, and all heard what sounded like a woman whispering, "Why did you take my baby?" over and over again. At this point, I was visibly shaking, and we all believed we found where the sound was coming from. We went into this room, and there was a huge cage. It looked like one of those pet carriers, but human-sized. I don't know what happened that night. I don't really believe that dead people were talking in there, but the sheer creepiness of it all was too much. Number 2. This actually happened to a friend of mine. She used to live in an entirely different town when she was younger, and her closet had this strange door in the back of it. Well, whether it was just imagined due to her being a small child at the time, or if it really did happen, she started to hear noises coming from behind this door whenever she went to bed. She told me that several times she tried telling her parents that she was hearing these noises, but they never believed her. So, some time went by, and one day her parents got a call from the police because they had just arrested a homeless man. This was not just any homeless man, however. This homeless man had been living in some sort of tunnel that went straight to that door in the back of her closet. So, every once in a while, for whatever reason, this man would come through that door and watch my friend sleep from her closet. Number 3. About 30 years ago, my mum went on a blind date. Her date took her to a restaurant, and, although he was nice enough, she just wasn't into him. Not even halfway through the meal, she was already thinking of ways to leave early. The waiter could tell. While my mum's date was in the restroom, the waiter approached her and asked if she was okay. She explained that she was on a blind date and wasn't having much fun. It turned out that the waiter was just about to get off work. He offered to give her a ride home if she waited another 10 minutes. She considered it and was about to say yes when her date came back from the restroom. She gave a subtle head shake, no, to the waiter and smiled. She and her date finished their meals and he took her home. The next night, my mum was watching the evening news. A story came on about a woman who had been raped and murdered behind a restaurant the night before. The restaurant was the one she had been at. They showed the murderer's picture. It was the waiter. Number 4. This couple had a huge tree in their backyard, and it started to smell and ooze. They had arborists come in and look at the tree, but no one could figure out what was wrong. The couple decided to have the tree removed. When the branches started coming down, a body fell out. A homeless woman had been sleeping in the tree and had died there. Her body had been decomposing in that tree for ages. Number 5. Years ago, I stayed for some nights at a hotel in the New Forest, which is a national park on the south coast of England. The hotel was a large former hunting lodge, built sometime in the 19th century. I felt very uncomfortable in my room, almost as though there were others there with me, or that someone was watching me. I am not the kind of person that is normally given to such feelings, but they were very strong and extremely uncomfortable. I was with a large group staying there at the time, and from speaking to others after the first night, many felt the same. That first night, it took me a long time to fall asleep, and for the first time in my entire adult life, I could not bring myself to turn out the lights before I went to bed. When I eventually fell asleep, I had the most vivid dreams that felt extremely real, of being in a trench somewhere during the Great War and hearing the constant banging of explosions and of artillery pieces firing. I woke up feeling extremely distressed and with a cold sweat. There was a banging noise, which I assume must have been some metal roofing not affixed properly moving in the wind. I have never felt anything like it since, and had never felt anything like it before. It felt so very real, and I was completely overwhelmed with so many emotions, and was utterly terrified. I couldn't get back to sleep. I felt like I was in the company of others, as if someone was near, or that feeling you get when you know people are looking at you. And I spent the rest of the night in a kind of daze. In the morning, I went downstairs for breakfast and saw a frame on the wall containing some photographs and a story about how the hotel was converted to a military hospital during World War I. I did not know anything about this before I arrived and before that night. I had also not been reading anything about the war and hadn't seen anything on the television recently about it either. I am a practical and skeptical woman, but I don't know what to make of that experience. I spent the remainder of the stay with one of my friends in another room. The oppressive atmosphere and general feeling of something wrong and frightening to me did not lift, and my friend who I stayed with was also very afraid and was glad of me to stay with them in their room. Number 6. I had awesome parents who used to let me sleep in the living room on weekend nights when I was very young, because my sister was a light sleeper and I could stay up until dawn. But of course, I always ended up sleeping on the couch because Nick at night made me tired. So, one night, I woke up to a prickly feeling, almost like an instinct. I bolted up into a sitting position and stared out of the front window. We lived in rural Georgia, where there is a multitude of trees. In the perfect light cast from the moon, I saw a silhouette of someone in the tree just outside the window. The family dog dashed to the window and started snarling into the glass. Terrified, I ran into my parents' room and tried to explain to them that there was someone outside. Dad grabbed something defensive and darted outside with the dogs to try and scare the person away. I trembled in my mother's arms until Dad came back into the house and said he saw no one and that I should go to bed. I decided to sleep in my regular bedroom that night. I filled in my sister as to what had happened. The house was still, and finally I thought, I can sleep. I was wrong. Very, very wrong. Suddenly, I noticed a shadow outside of my window. It was the same person from before. From what I could see in the moonlight, They gave me a shh signal and then ran away. They just turned and ran away into the darkness. I swear I couldn't stop crying for what felt like hours. I never saw that person again. Ha ha ha.